This brings us to another part of the chapter, a new section, that's about, I guess the author here is intending to communicate to us that much of what we say is not directly said. It's not included in the words we say, but it's inferred between the lines. We mentioned this at the beginning of the chapter, but here we get into the details of that. The well-known philosopher H. Paul Grice talked about one example, for instance, that we might illustrate here, the principle, and that is the word "some." If you are primed with the sentence "some liberals approve of the death penalty," and ask somebody what does the word "some" mean, people will say not many or not all. But that's not really what the word "some" means. This can be you can see that this is true if we give you a different sentence using the word "some." For instance, if we say, "Some of my best friends like banjo music," then the word "some" in that situation doesn't mean not many or not all. And we can know that because if we end the sentence with "some of my best friends like banjo music, in fact, they all do," then you haven't contradicted yourself. Some could mean all. The only thing some can't mean is none. For instance, if I said, "Some of my best friends like banjo music, in fact, none of them do," that would be contradicting yourself. That would mean that you would know then that "some" is not an accurate word to use in that situation, because more than 0 of my friends like banjo music. That's what you're implying when you say the word "some." More than 0. But you could mean that one friend likes banjo music. You could say, for instance, "Some of my friends like banjo music. In fact, I can think of one in particular." And in that situation, you haven't contradicted yourself. So "some" could mean anywhere from 1 to all of them. The only reason why we think, given the sentence, "Some liberals approve of the death penalty," that the word "some" means not many or not all, is because it's implied in this given situation. And Grice referred to these kinds of implications that speakers make as conversational implicature. In other words, they're implications that are made by a speaker in the midst of conversation that aren't said outright. Instead, the hearer has to infer between the lines what's being intended, rather than what's exactly being said. On page 437, you can see a funny example of a letter that somebody wrote. That the one sentence doesn't follow from the next. It's just a mumble jumble of a bunch of weirdness. And the sentence, the letter goes something like this: "I'm writing on paper. The pen I'm using is from a factory called Perry & Company. This factory is in England. I assume this. Behind the name Perry & Company, the city of London is inscribed, but not the city." So anyway, this is a weird letter, and you think this doesn't conform to the rules of language. But then when we find out from the next paragraph that this is actually written by somebody who is schizophrenic, then we say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I can recast this letter in light of that knowledge and come to a different conclusion. But without that knowledge, without knowing that somebody has schizophrenia writing this letter, we assume that something's very wrong here, or that maybe they're intending something that we're not getting. Maybe there's a code here or something, because we are inferring stuff that isn't there. We assume that there are certain rules that people follow if they're going to use language. And these rules, Grice called maxims. He has 4 of them. They're the maxims of cooperative conversation. And these 4 maxims I'll detail next.